Welcome to the fish tank.
Hey everybody, Fishman here, and welcome to another video. This is going to be part 2 of the deep bed under gravel filter. And before we get into the details today of what's going on, there's a little bit of clarification I need to do. Apparently there's some confusion in part 1. The fact that I'm calling this a deep bed filter, which it is because it's going to have 4 inches of biomedia in it, compared to the other under gravel filters which only had 2. This is an aerobic filter. There's going to be a high flow through this, and it's not going to do any denitrification. A lot of deep bed is being applied to aquariums where you put a lot of sand in and sometimes clay and other stuff, and because of that, and there's very little flow, you'll end up with the denitrification in the deeper parts of the aquarium, of the bed. This is not meant to do that. This is meant to allow you to have a higher bioload in the tank. So more fish, or in this particular case, they're going to be breeding plecos and feeding them quite heavily. And it's going to allow for a nice clean environment as far as cycling nitrogen. Now, because this is being hooked up to a high humidity planter filter on top, that should do some denitrification and again add more stability to the tank. So I hope that clarifies things, and while I was giving that explanation, I have been putting together the spacer that's going to go between the 2 modules, the under gravel filter part and the tray where the plants are going to grow in the high humidity planter part. Now you notice that I haven't quite gotten used to the setup time difference between Weldon and methylene chloride. Methylene chloride sets up a lot faster. And sometimes when I'm still testing out the Weldon, I don't wait quite long enough, and the joint that I just saw gave way there. And it's not a big deal, unless of course I was building this for somebody else, because the one thing I haven't managed to do is when a joint lets go like that, I can re-weld it and it'll hold fine, but it'll have bubbles in it, and I haven't been able to figure out a way of getting rid of the bubbles when something like that happens. So because this is just for my use, and it won't really matter that much because it'll be buried under gravel and things, it's no big deal. So I've skipped ahead a little bit here in the build. I've built the tray now, and I've drilled the holes for it, and also I've cut all the pieces for the cap. Now one thing I'm doing differently in the cap is you'll see there's 2 holes drilled there, and instead of putting a little like a little notch at the bottom so I can take the whole cap off, I've made it slightly different. So it's less likely that there's going to get a hose kink this way, but I don't think it's going to be much of an issue as far as inconvenience when it comes to taking it apart and stuff. So these are going to be the 4 corner spacers to keep the cap in place, just so it sits underneath. And one thing about these high humidity builds like this with all the splashing and everything, you need to have the lid fit inside here, and that way all the water, that condensation and everything just falls back into the filter, so you don't have to worry about it. In this case it'll just go into the aquarium, but it keeps it all nice and neat. So after I finish putting this cap together, all that's really left to do is fill this thing up and run it. But one other thing I almost forgot, I need to put 2 rings. If you remember the last one I did, the above tank under gravel filter I made, because this is going to have gravel and probably a little bit of lava rock, maybe even some driftwood and stuff, and there needs to be rings set so that the bits of grit and stuff doesn't fall down in between where the lift stacks come up and the holes that are going to be in the bottom of the tray. That will all become clear as we get closer to the end of the video and I start loading the filter up, and you'll get to see how all those bits and pieces come together. One of the odd things about this build is this cap here represents about 1/4 of my remaining 1/8 inch acrylic, and it's going to be interesting to see if I can get more in before I run out, because I was talking to my supplier, and with all the demand for 1/8 inch acrylic because of COVID-19 and trying to have spacers between a receptionist or whatever and a customer, June 20th is the earliest I think that they can get a shipment in, and I have an order for it already, but well, it'll be interesting to see. Now, one other thing I did as an afterthought actually, is even though each of these have lift stacks, sometimes there'll be a bit of a flow differential between them. Won't get a little plugged up plant or whatever. I decided to put it in the milling machine, and I cut the grooves you see there. So if there happens to be a little extra flow through one than the other, I don't want one to become anaerobic and then cause issues. So this way the flow will always even out. So these are lift stacks as complete units. Obviously, when I go to put it in the aquarium itself, they have to come apart. You'll get to see that as well. And as you can see, it goes together quite easily. The only, except maybe that, the only difficulty is in one thing, and that is when I set up the height for the larger diameter lift tube part. I am going to do that in the aquarium, so it takes a little bit longer to do that. But you only have to do it the once, so that's not so bad. And these are just going to be for the airlines. I'm actually getting kind of lazy in doing these. I just machine them for the airline to fit in, and then I just drill a couple holes. I find they work really well, and because, again, it's just my fish room, I don't really mind a little extra bubble noise, so there's no real need to put air stones or even the anti-clog air stones I made. There's no point in even doing that. So here you go. It's all together. And I've been running it now for a few days. Actually, this is actually interesting. Even though because of the height restrictions for this, where this is going to go, the actual concept itself, I find quite interesting. And I'm actually really getting to like underground filters because, well, I'm lazy, and box filters. Box filters because they're extremely efficient. And these are by the way, these are the two tubes I told you about, the ones that will prevent grit from going down in the holes and causing issues. So that was that part there. So yeah, actually between underground filters and of course the box filters, and any of those hooked up to a high humidity planter filter, I am actually getting to the point where I think those are my favorite filters for my fish room. Like, they just seem to supply me with everything I need, and the tanks that I've hooked those up on right now, especially the ones that have been running for a few months, I find the stability of the tank is just that much better than almost everything else I've built so far. So I'll be doing a few more of these, especially after I move the rack. So this, you can see, this is easy to load up. And as far as what goes in it, I made it up as I went along. I put some lava rock, gravel. Could have just done all gravel. Could have just done all lava rock. I don't really see much of a difference between the two in the underground filters I've done so far. I think probably I do prefer having some gravel in them, just for a little bit of extra. I don't know. They both are very good. I don't think it really matters. But like I said, it's just some of this stuff is just me kind of having a feel for something without any real way of backing it up. Now, what I have done though recently is I've been talking to one of my suppliers, and I'm going to get some extra stuff in, so I can actually put some numbers to some of these things and do some actual testing for nitrite and ammonia, that sort of thing, and hopefully put some numbers behind some of the things that I feel how they work better, and we'll see how that all goes. So there you go. That's the bottom tray, and like I said, it's just a matter of sliding in there. I'll never have to do anything with it after this, so that's fine. And this is the this is one of the two things that I kind of did wrong as I was setting this up. I left the tall part of the stacks on here, and because there's an aquarium above this, when I went to put in the rigid tubing for the airline, it wouldn't fit. So I had to back up, but that's fine. So this is the finicky part that I told you about earlier, and it's not such a big deal. It takes maybe 2-3 minutes to set up, and once it's done, it's fine. You never have to do that ever again. So it's not that big a deal, really. Then this just fits on top, and like I said, this is such an odd way of making a filter, I think, but it actually went together really, really well. Except one other small problem. When I was doing the measuring for this, I was measuring, for some reason I got sidetracked, and I was thinking about how much space there was above the light, and I ended up cutting the acrylic for this part, and obviously you saw the piece I had to cut off. I ended up cutting a little too tall. These things happen, especially the longer I am not working, because I think my brain's turning to mush because I don't have 50,000 things to think about every day. So there you go. This is very easy to hook up, and that is it. It's not going to sit up here in front of the tank like this, obviously. It's going to go way to the back, and I just wanted to leave it up front just for you guys to see it here. So this is it running, and I'm going to put some pearl weed in here, and then a little later I'm going to put in... I was doing a bunch of preliminary stuff to move the rack, and I had found some really ugly Java fern that was buried behind a bunch of pothos and stuff, so it wasn't very good. And I threw that in here as well because I want to see if this will actually cause it to grow better and come back to life, you know, make it look really nice. So all that's left now is to put those plants in it. So thank you very much for watching. Let me know below what you think of it, and if you do like this style of video, please like and or subscribe. I always appreciate that. And here it is with the pearl weed, and the last clip of course will be with the ugly Java fern. And since I put this video together, I have moved it to the back, and I've cleaned this tank up because I'm getting it ready for I'm moving a bunch of the breeding colonies of plecos I have around, right, to make room for stuff, and this is going to be one of them, and so I have to get ready for that. So there you go. It really splashes nicely, and I actually really like that, and you can see the flow is really good too. I have a lot of hopes for this sort of filter, so we shall see how it goes. So thank you very much for watching. I will see you in the next video, and bye for now.